At the start of the film, a farmhouse is shown. It is nighttime at the farmhouse, and a bright light is flashing. This dazzling light is nothing but a magical creature. In the morning, when the farmer wakes up, he discovers that something has ruined his fields. Since everything happened as a result of that light, the landlord calls his 3 sons and instructs them to guard the fields. Here, we see the youngest son, John, whom all his elder brothers consider a role model. His older brothers benefit from his kindness. His brothers ask him to guard the fields alone. John agrees and prepares to guard the fields by himself. While sitting alone in the fields, John hears a strange sound. A white horse was standing behind him. When John turned around, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. When he saw such a huge white horse, he tried to catch it by tying a rope around it. The horse started running, but John held the rope tightly. That's why John was being dragged along with the horse. The horse lost balance and fell into a swamp. John moved forward and helped the horse out of the swamp. Meanwhile, John noticed tears in the horse's eyes. John felt very bad and promised the horse that he would never come near this farmhouse again. The horse thanked John and left. When John returned home, he heard a sound again from his fields. When John went there to check, he was shocked to see 2 horses chained. Before he could understand anything else, a voice told John that this was a gift for him. When John turned around to see who was speaking, he saw a small horse named Foal. The foal was actually the child of the horse John had saved last night. Foal informed John that his mother was very pleased with him, so she sent him a gift. Hearing this, John was happy. On the other hand, John heard his father's voice. John went outside and tried to stop his father from entering. After his father left, John sat on the foal and started running at full speed. John was amazed by the foal's speed. When he reached a certain point, Foal whistled. The 2 horses came out of the stable upon hearing his whistle. John thought of selling these horses at the market. When John took the horses to the market, people were astonished by their beauty. No one had ever seen such magnificent horses before. Many people discussed buying these horses from John. At the same time, Foal also advised John to sell the horses to the older man. On the other hand, John wanted to sell these horses to the king. When the king arrived, he was fascinated by the horses, but his minister believed they were stolen horses. The king took advantage of the situation and took John's 2 horses without paying for them. When John spoke about money, the king remained silent and left. Foal scolded John, saying, "I had already told you to sell these horses to that old man." Realizing John's sadness, Foal whistled again, and the horses came back to him. Due to this, the king's carriage tipped over, and he was thrown into a sack of flowers. The king was embarrassed, but due to the situation, couldn't say anything. He asked John about the price of these horses. John set a high price for the horses, forcing the king's people to advise him to appoint John for his work, because if John stayed here, the king would take revenge for his humiliation. Advisors suggested that he order John to summon the phoenix bird, which John accepted the king's proposal and began working for him. Now, the king was a firebird and very difficult to capture. According to the advisor, summoning the bird was nearly impossible, and John would never succeed. Meanwhile, you could sentence him to death. The king praised the advisor's idea and informed John about it. John agreed. When Foal learned about this, he warned John that it would be dangerous. Anyone who had gone in search of the bird never returned. But John didn't back down, as he had completely accepted the challenge. Foal wanted to assist John, so he took him into the forest. There, he showed him a special kind of nut and explained that these were the firebird's favorite nuts. The bird enjoyed eating them, but these nuts had a unique property. When consumed, the bird would fall asleep quickly. Later, they would capture the bird. They reached the area where the bird resided. The firebird lived completely underground. They scattered some nuts on the ground and waited for the bird. When the bird caught the scent of the nuts, it emerged from the ground and began eating them. Soon after, the firebird lost control and fainted. While John was trying to catch the firebird, it regained consciousness. It stood up and started chasing John. As the bird ran after John and Foal, the entire island caught fire. The firebird captured them, but John threw the last nut in front of it. When the bird ate the nut, it fell unconscious again. The next morning, the Firebird woke up to find itself in chains. When John saw the Firebird, he noticed tears in its eyes, which made him feel bad. As a result, he freed the Firebird. The bird spread its wings and flew away. Before leaving, the bird left one of its glowing feathers with John. Foal assured John that the king would not forgive him. However, John claimed that if he showed the feather to the king, it would prove he had caught the Firebird. The king, however, refused to believe him. The next day, John was brought out to face the death sentence. John revealed the feather, but it no longer glowed. The king ordered John's execution. Just as the king commanded his death, the Firebird appeared before everyone. Witnessing this, they all believed John. As a result, the king had to revoke the death sentence. Additionally, the king promoted John, which only increased his frustration. The king then asked his minister to devise a new plan. After much thought, the minister suggested sending John to bring back a princess from the mountains. If John failed, it would end there. If he succeeded, the king could marry the princess, benefiting him either way. The king liked this idea and sent John on the mission. John eventually reached the Czar Mountains, where the princess lived. He saw a path leading to a palace on the mountain. The path was covered with a thick layer of ice, making it extremely hard to break through. Meanwhile, the Firebird's feather appeared, melting the ice wall and breaking the remaining ice layers. This caused a flood of water, and Foal floated, creating a floating snowball that later collapsed. John tumbled down from the mountain. When John entered the palace, he saw a large number of girls, all of them asleep. Identifying the real princess among them was extremely difficult. However, when the Firebird's feather fell near one of the girls, John recognized her as the princess. John was amazed by the girl's beauty and told her that his king was interested in marrying her. The girl claimed that if your king was so powerful, he would have come to take me himself. After saying this, the girl jumped off the mountain. John, too, jumped without worrying about his life. Foal saved them both. He carried them down on his back. After observing John, Foal realized that he had started to like the princess. Foal also understood that if the king found out, it would be a big problem for him. The princess, secretly listening to their conversation, also began to feel that she liked John. When they returned to the king, everyone was amazed to see such a beautiful princess. The king saw John alive, but was reluctant to believe his followers' explanations that this was indeed good for him. Now they were promoting John, but he wasn't happy about it. He was worried about the princess, so he secretly went to see her. Before he could tell her anything, the king's men arrived and took her away. The king proposed to the princess, but she set a condition. She would marry him only if he retrieved a ring that belonged to her grandmother. The ring had been lost in the sea, and she refused to marry until it was found. This made the king anxious, so he called for John. As John stood there, the king ordered him to retrieve the ring. When John asked about it, Foal replied that he knew nothing and would ask his mother about it. Foal's mother revealed that the ring was inside a whale's belly, found near a small island in the sea. John set out immediately with Foal, but he fell due to a collapse with several birds around. John realized he had reached his destination. He saw a giant whale chained up in the sea. When John emerged, Foal told him the entire island was the whale. John asked the whale why it was in chains. The whale confessed it had accidentally eaten some ships and as a result was captured by other sailors. The whale now wanted to correct its mistake. Feeling sorry for the whale, John came up with a plan. He believed he could retrieve everything from the whale's stomach by helping it sneeze. According to the plan, John entered the whale's nose and tickled it. The whale sneezed, expelling all the ships from its stomach. Later, the whale returned to the sea and swam away. Suddenly, John remembered the ring and felt sad about the whale's departure. At that moment, a crab appeared with the ring and told John that the whale had sent it for him, as it had sensed his feelings. John returned to the princess with the ring. On their way back, they saw the Firebird tied up near the king's building. When John gave the ring to the princess, she realized he could do anything for her. Meanwhile, one of the king's men secretly observed this through a microscope on Foal. They thought Foal was a devil when they listened to him speak. They all went to capture Foal. The king also awoke and, seeing Foal near the princess's window, shot him. John, despite his best efforts, could not save him. The king then announced that John would be dismissed as the prince's kidnapper. A few days later, John was sentenced to death. Meanwhile, the princess met Foal in secret and confessed that her actions had caused John's trouble. She claimed that to avoid marrying the king, she had asked him to bathe in 3 separate pots, the first filled with boiling water, the second with ice-cold water, and the third with boiled milk. She informed the king that by doing this, he could regain his youth. The king found the idea intriguing, but wasn't entirely convinced. One of the king's advisors suggested testing the method on John first. The princess, however, warned Foal with a clever idea to save John. She explained that if her grandmother's ring was placed in the first pot, the feather of the firebird in the second, and the flower of life and death in the third, John might survive. Foal asked the princess about these flowers. She told these flowers could only be found at the very edge of the world. While it would take considerable time to retrieve the flowers, the princess expressed confidence in the foal's speed to complete the task quickly. Despite being injured, Foal set off to get the flowers. By the next morning, the pots were ready. The king decided to turn the event into a public show, presenting himself as a kind and benevolent ruler. He announced to everyone that this was John's second chance. If John succeeded, he would be released. The king pushed John into the first pot, while the princess secretly placed the ring inside the pot as well. The presence of the ring allowed John to emerge from the first pot and enter the second unharmed. The firebird, observing the events, began to scream. Its cries reached and unchained the feather, causing it to fly into the second pot. John then entered the third pot. Princess was anxiously awaiting the arrival of Foal, and the scene shifted to Foal. He reached for the flower and discovered whoever picked the flower would die. Despite this, he plucked the flower, believing it was the only way to save John. Everyone there assumed John was dead and started to leave sadly. However, Foal appeared and throwed the flower into the third pot. John emerged from the last pot, transformed into a prince. Seeing this, the king, eager to regain his youth, jumped into the first pot. Instead of becoming younger, he was trapped in a bubble and floated away. The crowd rejoiced and crowned John as their new king. The princess and John set off to find Foal. Foal believed he was going to die, but the princess reassured him that the flower had only tested his courage and he was safe now. In the final scene, we see John marrying the princess, and the story ends here. If you liked this video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to watch a movie that'll get you into a world of magic, you can find it in this video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.